time now for the Wiltfong Whiparound with our Director of Recruiting, Steve Wiltfong. And Steve, let's go ahead and start with that breaking news. Terry Bussey to Texas A&M. What does this big ad mean for the Aggies?
Well, they just added maybe the best two-way player in high school football since Travis Hunter. And that's what he aspires to be like on the next level. Talked to him earlier today. You think about Champ Bailey at Georgia, Charles Woodson at Michigan, and then Hunter and what he did in the opener against TCU. He doesn't plan to come off the field in College Station. And he said that's the way Jimbo Fisher and his staff recruited him the whole time. Andrew Evans talked about the stats at the top of the show, the 74 rushing touchdowns, 48 passing touchdowns, 24 career interceptions with a lot of pick sixes. He's a guy that's coming to Texas A&M to make a difference on offense, whether that's in the backfield, the slot, or at running back, and then in the secondary. And then he wants to play special teams. He doesn't want to come off the field. Major pickup for Texas A&M. They now have the number 3 recruiting class in the land, and this is a guy that can bring a jolt to every side of the ball for them as a true freshman.
We're going to dig into his tape a little bit later on in this show, but let's go to Austin. The Longhorns, they host Kansas. Five-star wide receiver Dakorien Moore, a lot of hosts this weekend. He's currently committed to LSU, but Sark is looking for that spatula, Steve. So what's the latest on Texas's pursuit of the Duncanville native?
Yeah, what a terrific visitor list that they have at Texas this weekend. More on that on Horns 247. 5-star Kobe Black is going to be there, who we love Texas for in 2024. But there's not a player that's going to be in Austin this weekend that Steve Sarkisian and company are going to be more excited to see than Dakorien Moore out of Duncanville. And they just had him there a couple weeks ago for the win over Wyoming. He's an absolute elite player that's trying to help Duncanville win its second straight state title. And we've seen what Steve Sarkisian's been able to do with elite receivers throughout his career. And I think that's attractive to Dakorien Moore. His commitment to LSU, I think, kind of surprised Texas. And ever since he jumped in the boat for LSU back in August, they've been pedal to the metal. And we see it starting to make hay as they've gotten him to campus for what will be a second time this fall. And I think that they should be nervous in Baton Rouge, as Texas is obviously making an impression on this very special pass catcher.
Steve, Colorado looking to put that Oregon loss behind them. They welcome USC on Saturday. Early kickoff there on the West Coast, 9 a.m. They got a few different visitors. I know that visitors list has been reworked, but Nick Marsh, I just mentioned him with Michigan State. Jordan Davidson, one of our top running backs in the class of 2025. And then Gage Ginther, a offensive lineman committed to Tennessee. So it seems like the Buffs are looking to bust out the spatula here in advance of the early signing period.
Yeah, it's a very talented visitor list this weekend. And they were also tracking to have 2 5-star receivers, Ryan Wingo and Cameron Coleman, in for official visits, but Deion Sanders and his staff want to push those to December, where Coach Sanders and the staff can spend more time with them. But Nick Marsh, one of the top receivers in the country, obviously committed to Michigan State right now. Our colleague Alan True was first to report that he'll be in Boulder. And talking to Alan, this is a visit that's been in the works behind the scenes. Nick has committed to Michigan State twice now during his process, the second time over Penn State, Pittsburgh, and Kansas. But Colorado is a school that he is very intrigued by, ready to get out there and soak in that atmosphere. And then Gage Ginther is a 2024 offensive lineman. That is a major target for them as they try and continue to shore things up around the line of scrimmage. We love what they have at quarterback. We love the way they've recruited those skill positions. Gage Ginther is important to recruit as there is out there for Coach Sanders and company, and they've recruited him as a 5-star in their mind as they try and flip him from Tennessee. They got him to campus in January. He had a fantastic time. That was when he was maybe seeing the infancy stages of this coaching staff. Now he's been able to see them be 3-1. Get some big wins, get some excitement around the program, and getting them back is huge. And then Jordan Davidson, same thing. He said Colorado is a major contender coming out of his January visit, seeing Sean Lewis's offense, seeing what Coach Sanders has been able to do and changing that culture. They're in the thick of that. He's got 50 scholarship offers. We've seen some buzz around Texas, Oklahoma, programs like that. But Colorado is one that you got to put near the top of the list with the way they've recruited him and what they've been able to show on the field so far.
Let's head to the SEC. Auburn hosting #1 Georgia. Also, quite a few 2024 talents, including 5-star Florida State commit safety KJ Bolden and 4-star Alabama commit defensive lineman Jeremiah Beeman. Where does Hugh Freeze stand with these potential flips?
Well, Auburn was Spatula U, if you remember, at the end of the 2022 cycle with all the great players and blue chippers. They were able to flip with the excitement around Hugh Freeze and his coaching staff. And there's going to be a lot of excitement around this game with Georgia coming to town. And this is an opportunity for Auburn to continue to show the progression this program is making under the first-year staff. They're a top 25 team on defense right now, right out of the gate. So I think that's something that is catching the eye, certainly of Jeremiah Beeman, who is committed to Alabama right now. He's also built a really good relationship with Coach Garrett, the defensive line coach, who has an NFL background. So that's exciting to him. And so he's committed to Alabama, but right now he's in dot I's, cross T's phase and getting up there, getting around that new Auburn coaching staff, making sure he gives Auburn a fair shake, stacking it up against Alabama. He was also at Colorado recently, plans to go back there for an official visit. This is a chance for Auburn to continue getting Jeremiah Beeman to think otherwise as far as Tuscaloosa goes. And then KJ Bolden, obviously committed to Florida State. I think that's an uphill climb for Auburn and Georgia right now, but he's been to Auburn a couple times. This is a visit that he's had on the radar for quite some time, even before he committed to Florida State. He loved his time there in March, loved his time there in April. He's talked about the entire staff being on the same page and seeing what they're building over there. That spring game was a downpour. KJ Bolden still loved it. So Auburn is just a place where he's always been able to see himself. I'm not predicting a flip, but both these guys have gotten good vibes from the Auburn staff. And if they play well against Georgia, you never know. Could be a special day on the Plains.
Steve, well, Auburn's got it cranking on defense, but the offense has been an issue in recent years. And two of the other visitors on the list, Nikar, who just decommitted from Georgia. I think you reported Miami, Florida State were in there, but he's going to spend the weekend on the Plains. What's the latest there? And then also with Amir Jackson, a top 247 tight end committed to the University of Florida.
Yeah, well, they brought Hugh Freeze there to fix that offense, and his past tells us that eventually Auburn's going to have one of the most potent offenses in the country. Like the way they've recruited so far since he's been there. And Amir Jackson, look, that's a guy that schools covet at the tight end position. Now, I still think it's a long road to flip him from Florida, but with this being an unofficial, if they can get him back for an official visit and continue to make some hay there, we'll see what happens. Nikar, when he decommitted from Georgia, the first school and the school I heard the most about was Miami, but certainly Auburn is one of great intrigue, and him setting that visit up so quickly. It's a school that he's been building a rapport with behind the scenes. They're definitely a major contender for him as well, and we'll see how the weekend goes. He's obviously going to see a major need at his position on Saturday.
All right, another big game in the SEC. The Vols are looking for revenge against South Carolina in their own building on Saturday. It'll be a packed house with guys like 4-star running back Daniel Hill, 4-star Cam Michael, and 4-star offensive tackle Jordan Seaton all plan to be in attendance at Neyland Stadium. So where does Tennessee fit in with those recruitments?
Well, there's some believe that they lead for Cam Michael right now. They were one of the first schools to kind of recruit him as an offensive player. He's someone that has a skill set to certainly shine in the secondary, but Tennessee, their offense, and the way they've been able to recruit guys like Mikey Matthews, maybe going in there and playing alongside this terrific receiver class, is something that's exciting to Cam Michael, and really just what Coach Heupel has been able to do historically on the offensive side of the ball that has stood out to him. So this is another opportunity for them to continue racking up inches in that recruitment. Jordan Seaton, he was supposed to visit Oklahoma this weekend on an official. Now he's going to Tennessee on an unofficial. He told me yesterday that he wants to start seeing these schools that he hasn't been to before. He's heard about the atmosphere inside Neyland. He wants to experience it for himself. He loves the way Tennessee has recruited quarterbacks. He thinks that's incredibly important to his process. And so this is an opportunity for Tennessee to set themselves up for an official visit and make a huge run here for one of the most coveted, uncommitted players in the country. I think this one has a lot of roadway. He has named Alabama his his favorite recently. Ohio State has also been a favorite. They're both in there. Oregon, Colorado, Florida, some of the other contenders, South Carolina, a contender. So we'll see what happens with Jordan Seaton this weekend, but he loves the offense. And then Daniel Hill, top 247 running back. I like where Alabama stands. But South Carolina is a program that looked like the leader at one point, and Tennessee's the third school. He's going to see two of those schools play this fall. I think he's trying to make a decision sometime soon after this visit. Tennessee would love to add him to their recruiting class as well as one of those running backs that can also be very dangerous catching the football.
Steve, Duke, big game for them. Could be the biggest recruiting weekend ever for the Blue Devils. Tons of top 247 talent expected to be in Durham. Mike Elko, he's the guy pulling the strings here. How has he been able to not only win games, but get Duke in the conversation with some of these four-star prospects? That hasn't always been the case.
Well, he brings so much positive energy to the football program, and really, he's been one of the best defensive coordinators in college football for the last decade. I think there's no disputing that. And Duke, again, this year boasting one of the best defenses in the country. They're top 5 in scoring, top 5 against the pass. And then he brought in Kevin Johns to run his offense, who's one of the more brilliant play callers in the country. And so those two guys kind of pulling the strings on their respective side of the ball. They've infused a great culture. It's been an exciting turnaround for them to win 9 games that first year after only winning 10 the 3 years prior. And from a recruiting standpoint, Mike Elko has always been an involved recruiter. This is a guy that loves mining for talent, guys that have high upsides, guys like Jesse Bates, who he brought to Wake Forest, who's now one of the stars in the NFL. Yeah, that's what he loves to do. This is like in his wheelhouse at Duke to find guys like they found at Wake Forest and win big with them. And his involvement, he put together a terrific staff of great recruiters on the field and off the field. It's resonating. Like you said, this is the biggest recruiting weekend that I've seen in my 20 years of covering recruiting.
Wow. All right. That says something. Steve, I got 2 quick questions for you before I let you go. One, will you remind people what the like button looks like so they can find it? I mean, we only have less than half of you have hit that button, so go ahead. Looks just like a big old Steve Wiltfong thumbs up. Next question. Along the same lines of Mike Elko, they seem to really be honing in on the 2025 cycle. They've got a strong 2024 class, but who should we keep an eye on Saturday as Duke looks to build on next year's class?
Well, let's bring Whiparound full circle. We talked about the number 1 athlete in the 2024 class, Terry Bussey, and his commitment to Texas A&M. Let's now talk about the number 1 athlete in the 2025 class, Jordan Young, who was at Duke a couple weeks ago. This is a guy that Duke is eyeing as a playmaker on offense. You can't have too many one-touch and score potential guys at a place like Duke, but he certainly has a skill set to do a lot of things on the next level, and him coming back so quickly shows you the kind of interest that he has in Duke. Top 247 linebacker Cameron Smith, top 247 offensive lineman Alex Payne are 2 guys that this Duke staff has been entrenched with as well. And there's a lot of special 2026s coming to campus as well, because if Duke wins a lot of games like these, if they can keep racking up wins like this, these sophomores coming to campus, all they're going to know by the time it's time for them to make a decision is a Duke team that's competing for conference titles. They're trending that way, and guys like Kendry Harrison, the number 1 tight end in our 2026 ranking, is going to be there. And we'll see if Duke can capitalize that like they did against Clemson with another primetime win over Notre Dame perhaps on Saturday night.
Steve, I lied. We got a viewer question for you.
Let's bring it.
Let's do it. Okay. Poppy Spence wants to know what's the latest on 5-star defensive lineman Aydin Breland out of Mater Dei.
Well, he's coming off a great trip to Georgia. I think that the pulse is with the Bulldogs right now with their player development and game atmosphere. He wanted to get back there and see a game atmosphere, but just the way that Georgia's plays defense, rotates a ton of guys, develops their players in the first rounders. I give Georgia the edge right now, but you got Miami in there strong. You got Oregon in there strong. So we'll see how the chips continue to fall in the recruitment of Aydin Breland.
All right, we will certainly see. Steve, thank you so much for being on the show today. We appreciate all the great info that we get from you. If you want more of that info, be sure that you are subscribed to the 24/7 Sports YouTube page. That's where you're going to see all the past Wiltfong Whiparounds. And we're over 200,000 subscribers on this channel. That is absolutely nuts. If you are not subscribed, you are missing out.